Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Kosher and Black. We have a very special guest on today, Rabbi Mordecai Yosef, here to talk a lot about some deep things, and we're going to get right into it, and we're not going to hold you. So let's get right into this new episode.
We've got some difficult days ahead. I just want to do God's will. I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
That if you stand with Hashem and you stand for what's right, you will march across the finish line. You will have victory.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, again back to Kosher and Black. I am your host, Yirmeyahu Yosef. And as you can see next to me, we have a very special guest, Rabbi Mordecai Yosef. Before we get to our guest, I want to remind everybody, if you have listened to the show before, if you are a regular listener, please share this with somebody that you know, 5 people that you know. Share it on Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter. Whatever you have out there, share it on your social media so that everybody can get this, and it helps us greatly with the algorithm when you share this podcast everywhere. I do not want to hold anybody, and I know that Rabbi Mordecai Yosef's time is precious, so I want to jump right into this interview on today. I'm so excited. I haven't met Rabbi Mordecai Yosef officially with a handshake, but I do. I follow you consistently on Instagram, and it's definitely inspired by a lot of your posts. I'm glad you're able to make it on the show. I know your time is precious, and So, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Yirmeyahu. And I want to say, it's an honor being on your show, and I've also seen your work. And I think your platform is very important, and it should grow and continue to have success. So I'm very honored to be here, and look forward for this discussion.
Thank you. So let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you studied. Who is Rabbi Mordecai Yosef?
Great question. So Rabbi Mordecai Yosef is a soul that came into this world when my parents met each other, and I was born. And I was born actually in Springfield, Ohio, but I moved to Los Angeles when I was like 2 years old, and I pretty much grew up there my whole life. My parents grew up Christian, but when they got into college, they kind of like got into Islam, but more of a specific type, more like Sufism. They eventually got into. And so that's kind of like a spiritual, kind of like, mystical type of idea, a lot of meditation, a lot of stuff. My parents were really into, they're, kind of like ahead of their times. They're really into like therapy and like working on yourself and emotional intelligence and all these types of things. And so that's how we grew up. And my dad was in insurance business. My mom's an educator. She's a professor. And, we grew up in the pretty good environment. We grew up in the suburbs. I have 4 other siblings, and we grew up pretty good. And I was, we grew up in the Valley, San Fernando Valley. And the thing about it was that it was a lot of materialism where we grew up. A lot of people had a lot of financial success and these types of things. And it creates, a new set of questions, right? Meaning that like, okay, well, what's my goal in life? Because like, if I didn't have a lot and I saw that there are people who had a lot, I could assume that I would be happier if I had a lot, right? But when you have many of the material things that the world says you should have, or this is what you should have you should be successful, or you are successful by having these things, but you still feel this like sense of emptiness and a sense of lack, like, what do you do? Like, do you have to make more money than your parents? You have to be more successful than anyone? Maybe that will fill it.
Right.
My high school, I went to Calabasas High School, and, my senior year, we had like the second highest drug rate in the state of California, right?
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. And I think
At the high school.
High school, right? High school.
Wow.
So I have friends that went to rehab. Like, actually, a guy I grew up with, Rob Borden, he was in the group Lincoln Park. He was a drummer in Lincoln Park. But I remember him, going to rehab, this type of thing growing up. So it was like a thing, people I knew. It was a lot of drug use. And I never got into it because I played sports, you know. And also, I think there was also a sensitivity, I think, being African-American and, you know, drug addicts and crackheads, this type of thing. It's a very, like, you know, you don't want to, you know, it's if you didn't get into it, you don't want to get into it. You know what I mean? Type of a thing. So that was kind of like the upbringing, and you know, just to like save time, not to go through every stage of it, but the big idea is to say that I grew up asking the question of what's more and what's next and what's the next level. And so at that time in my life, it was like I just thought I had to become a billionaire or something, you know. And
oh wow,
yeah, that was a real thought. And I even remember in my high school yearbook, many of my friends, we wrote, okay, after I make my first $1 million, I'm going to take you out to eat, you know, this type of thing. So that was like, that was really a big part of, you know, my thinking process growing up. And I met a guy when I was younger, a friend of mine. His name was, he was my friend's father. His name was Sim Farrar. And he said to me, he was in investment banking business. They did a lot of like political fundraising and that type of stuff. But remember one day he said to me, he was like, yeah, you know, the 3 ways that I've seen people become enormously rich is through high finance, real estate, and entertainment. And I asked him, my dad's in insurance business. I said, what about insurance? He's like, insurance, people make money, but it takes a lot longer. And then he says, and an enormous amounts of money that are made, you know, I mean, you're getting insurance policies, you know, so it's not the same type of money. And so when I was younger, I got into the entertainment business. A lot of the kids that I grew up with, you know, I grew up in Calabasas, many people there were producers and actors, tons of me. The Kardashians grew up out there. Ray J and Brandy were my neighbors. You know what I mean? These types of things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, Ray J, like I used to throw parties when I was younger. And one of my friends, Kenta, probably you see this, you know, he was friends with Ray J. And so I became friends with Ray J. And I just remember getting him to come to my parties and perform, and him like begging me not to like tell his mom because his mom would get upset if he's not making money, this type of thing. So anyway, so it was a lot of that was there. And but again, it's that same thing. It was like, you know, what's next? Right. And this is before the Kardashians, people were famous, but it's just saying what was next. And I just got into business, and I got into the entertainment business, and on the finance side, I started an internet company when I was a kid. It's a whole thing, like, to explain the building blocks, like intellectually, why I got to certain places. But in a nutshell, if you could do such a thing, you know, it was like, you know, I grew up very ambitious, wanting to make a lot of money, you know, working, also going to school, you know, these types of things. And while I was working for a particular company. I was at this business conference, and I met this girl named Marcy. And she took me, I was just like into her, and we ended up going out to eat, and she starts telling me about the Kabbalah Center and this thing, and I wanted to hang out with her. You know? And I was just like, hey, I wouldn't mind checking it out, you know? And I remember reading something about a Madonna, this, whatever, the whole thing. So anyway, so she took me to an intro lecture at the Kabbalah Center, and the Kabbalah Center was formed by Rav Berg and Karen Berg in blessed memory. But the impetus, the beginning of the Kabbalah Center was with Rabbi Ashlag, the Baal Sulam, you know, who wrote the major commentaries on the Zohar and these type of things. So he started the Kabbalah Center here in Israel, and then Rav Brandwein, who was his student, kind of not necessarily continued it on, but the thought per se, and then his student Rav Berg was the one that Rob Brandwein told to go out and start the Kabbalah Center or whatever. So I ended up going there, and I just remember going to that first intro lecture and be like, whoa, like I felt like I waited my whole life to hear some of these ideas, you know, because, you know, my family, you know, my parents were, like I said, were very into like emotional development and working on yourself and these type of things, but it really didn't have so much to do with anything religion or spiritual. It was like psychotherapy, you know what I mean? That they were into that.
Gotcha.
And then the religion component was on the other side, you know what I mean? And so when I went to the Kabbalah Center, it was the first time I saw like this idea of working on yourself and spirituality and emotional development and an all-inclusive system was there, and it really affected me, you know, in a deep way. So I was there at the Kabbalah Center, I think from like 2003 to like 2009 and 2008, 9-ish. And it was a huge experience. It was a game changer. and I studied. I mean, I came to Israel with the Kabbalah Center, I think in 2004, which was also a life-changing experience. Just coming to Israel for the high holidays,
Yeah.
the first time out of the country. This is like 2004. It's 2026 now. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so,
Right.
and so anyway, so that was that experience, and it was just a huge game changer. I did my first mikvah here in Israel. I wasn't even
Oh,
Jewish at the
wow.
time. Yeah, I wasn't halakhically Jewish, and it was the first mikvah I ever did was at the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria's mikvah in Sfat, right? So it was like really powerful experiences that I had. And while I was at the Kabbalah Center, I had other friends that I was there with for years, because I started in 2003 and 2007, 2008. I mean, I've grown up with people. These are like my 20s are there,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of my friends started to become religious with Isha Torah, which is an organization. And one of my friends, this guy Yosef, was like, "Hey, you should come. You should come." Like, bro, I'm with the, I did not. The thought of being Jewish wasn't like such a concept at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And anyway, so he started to ask me to come out to these events, these things, whatever, to hang out. And I eventually came to a lecture, and I was blown away because they were teaching very similar ideas. It was like a lot of Kabbalah, a lot of working on yourself, a lot of these types of things. And I was affected by that. And it was like mainstream Judaism. And a lot of people there were my age, right? All young working professionals, trying to figure out God, figure out life. And
Yeah.
And I became friends, and I started getting invited to Shabbat meals and lunches and this. I didn't even know these things existed, in a lot of ways. And it just was a whole new world. And I was like around like 2009-ish, 10-ish. And I just decided that, and I met other people who converted and other things, other African-Americans who went through conversion processes and these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed a confidence to say like, hey, you know what? I could do this, and I started a conversion process with the very holy Rabbi Futa in Los Angeles, who's Israeli and Moroccan and the whole thing, and also a Kabbalist. And so I did well with him. And, but also just very much I became immersed in the whole community, the Pico Robertson community in general, which is a place in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up moving there, whatever.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful community. Yes.
So anyways, I converted 2013 and I mean, so not 2013. Yeah, 2013, I converted in September, which is interesting because the same month I was actually born in. And after that, I kind of like, it was a big transformation for me. It's like all these stages I'm going, we could literally talk for hours just on each stage. So I'm just like running through it because I want to just get to the dialogue, but I want the audience to kind of like just get a picture of just me and my journey a little bit. And so I converted in 2013. I was in the entertainment business. I worked for Warner's. I was executive VP, different places, produced film and television. Music, a lot of the music that I don't know if you listen to it because you're a religious guy, but a lot of this West Coast artists, I did the deals for them, like YG, DJ Mustard, New Boys, Cali Swag, all these, and much more other people. I did movies. American High School was a big movie. I did a TV series called Jerk All Stars, which is a dance competition series. All types of things. So my whole life was in that space, concerts, tours. And spawn everything, right? Every level of entertainment I've worked in and had success. And so when I finished my conversion, it was like, at first I didn't really think so much of it. Like I was like, I've already like been in the Kabbalah Center, learning this, blah, 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 traveling to Israel, learning the deep stuff, the secrets. So, I looked at it just like a formality, like you go through a conversion process and you continue with your life, within the community. But it was a very big transformation for me. Like it was a huge transformation for me. My whole outlook on life. After I came out of the mikvah, just everything was different. And so I didn't want to do entertainment anymore at that time. I was just like, I don't want to do this. I had another movie already set up. It was a whole thing. And I decided I wanted to just talk to people and I wanted to talk about truth. And at that moment, my way of doing that was by getting involved in politics. And so there was, it was different political stuff, whatever. Anyways, I got involved with the Republican Party, and a lot of that had a lot to do with some of the values. I wouldn't say all the values, but some of the values, which is like, small business. I mean, small government, entrepreneurship, family values, things that I was raised with. I connected to that. And in Los Angeles, it's like Democratville. It's a whole thing. And I'm not trying to make this a political conversation. And I'm not
I got it.
defending
I
one
get it.
party.
I was born and raised in Illinois, so I understand.
Exactly. Okay, so now you got it. So it was like that, and so anyways, I ended up getting involved with the California Republican Assembly, and I became like chairman of Jewish Outreach. Was the whole thing in itself because I had friends, relationships, obviously in the community, and eventually I ran for U.S. Congress in 2026. I was Republican nominee in Los Angeles. And that was after that campaign, some of the rabbis in the community said, hey, why don't you go to yeshiva for a little bit, learn a little bit, and you could come back and really help the community, because everyone knows you, this whole type of thing. I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And so some of the rabbis went to a yeshiva called Or Sameach, which is one of the top yeshivas in the world. And they went there. And so they contacted the people. And eventually I came to yeshiva here. And that was my life. For the last, when I first got 4.5 years, I got off the plane, I went to the hotel, and then I went to an apartment, and then we started yeshiva a month later, and it was just from morning to night, just learning for years, and it just was like that. Like, literally waking up, washing my hands, and grabbing my Gemara and just going to the yeshiva and not leaving there till it was dark. And, anyway, so I was there for 4.5 years, and that's when I kind of like started the smicha program that I got involved in, which is the rabbinical ordinance. I did that, and then I got married. Whatever. It didn't work out. But anyways, I got married, and at that time is right when I met Chief Rabbi Pinchas Eliyahu. And he had a yeshiva in the old city called Bastina Kadisha, and he had a friend of mine, this guy Zohar, who's a Haitian guy who's also a rabbi now. He was learning with him, and they were starting the yeshiva. So I started to slowly. Eventually, I started learning by Chief Rabbi Pinchas, and it's a whole big story. But eventually, I got my second smicha over by him, and these types of things.
Okay.
So anyways, just to put a mechitza on this whole part is just to say that I just basically have been teaching and learning for the last 9 years, day in and day out. And I started a yeshiva a couple years ago, Yeshiva Sanhedrin. And basically the idea around it it's many ideas around it. It's a think tank. It's connected to so many different organizations, one of which, Chief Rabbi Pinchas, and the African Jewish Federation, which their focus is helping many of the indigenous tribes in Africa who have defined themselves as Israelites or descendants of Israelites, and so his organization is there to help infuse their learning and give resources and holidays and all this type of stuff.
That's good.
So I'm involved with them, but I'm also involved with other organizations that deal with Jews in India and programs in North America. So really just spreading it out. And, it's really even a way, a lot of it's a media company because we're going to start producing film and television, these types of things. May not be television in the context of television, but in the context of, format. Right, like series and movies, that type of thing. So anyway, so that's where we're at now. We just moved to the Old City. Before we were in Nakalot, which is another city in central Jerusalem, but now we're in the Old City. And before we go, maybe I'll go outside. You guys see the view. But this is where we're at now, and we're going to be doing events and a lot of teaching. But I have students. Most of my students are in America, and most of my students are African American, and they're in America. Okay. And so that's also a big conversation too. Is a lot of African Americans have 150-year history of defining themselves as descendants of Israelites, and it's expressed itself in many different ways in American society. So it's also one of the issues that I'm very close to, and have made efforts to elevate the conversation and these types of things.
Gotcha. Great. That's great. You talk about most of that last part. You said a lot of things. You had an amazing life so far. But especially that last part, because I know, when I came through and started studying the first interaction I had with someone who's African American who identifies as quote unquote Jewish was my cousin in Chicago. He's a Hebrew Israelite. So I don't know if most people are familiar with that term or not. But how have you had any interactions with the Hebrew Israelite community, and like how do you inform them in a way that's, or even can you, I don't know, but inform them in a way that, hey, maybe, halakha conversion is the way to go, or like you're not as Jewish as you may think you are, or I don't even know if they use that term Jewish or not, because I know that has a whole connotation in that community as well. But how have your, I'm curious to know, since you said that, what is your interaction with the Hebrew Israelite community?
I've had a lot.
And I'm assuming, I don't know if it exists in Jerusalem. I'm assuming it doesn't exist in Israel, but
yeah, it does.
Probably just an American thing. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a few, okay. So the thing is, so I first really heard, I grew up in LA, right? So you always had Hebrew Israelites in the corners and the guys yelling, and they got the outfit, the whole thing. But I never really like thought so much of it. You know what I mean? Like it was just kind of like LA's a wild place type of a thing. And it wasn't until I went to, when I was in yeshiva, I was at Orsa Mac, there was another African-American guy who was there. His name was Kazriel, or his name is Kazriel. And very smart guy, brilliant guy in Gemara. But his family were Hebrew Israelites, and he converted Orthodox.
Oh.
And so that's where I met him in yeshiva, right? And so he's the one who we really had a lot of conversations about it, like how the whole thing, this, and there's so many dynamics. So the term itself is a general idea, but there's so many facets and subdepartments. So I've had a tremendous amount of communication with the Hebrew Israelites over there. It's died down a lot, but when the whole Kanye thing was happening and Kyrie Irving and this and all that stuff, I was on TV tons of times. Like Kanye, like in many ways, like his rants about Judaism, like put me in the mainstream media, because like I was like, I had a music background, I'm African American, I'm a religious rabbi, I'm living in Israel. But it was Kanye's craziness that put me on the I-24 news and the mainstream, all this type of stuff. So, yeah, whatever. Maybe it's not for the best things, but that. And then Dave Chappelle said things. So I was just like banging the media. And so out of that came a lot of podcasts. So like Captain Tazariak, I don't know if you know who he is. He's a very big person in the movie. All these guys, I've been on all the podcasts. Zion Lex, I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, I know Zion Lex.
Yeah, so I think he identifies as an Israelite. And many of these other guys, I've been on tons of conversations, and there's so many different, and even people who like are completely different, like, Rabbi Fournier, right? Who is a conservative rabbi, but he is the head of the Israelite Board of Rabbis, which is existed
in Chicago.
In Chicago, right? And they've existed for, I think they just did their 90th year anniversary, right? And they're conservative Jews. Right. So you have, it's a whole big, and they are coming off of another organization that existed before them. So there's been African-American organizations that define themselves as Israelites for the last 150 years in institutions. Right. So Rabbi Fournier, who I did a whole public thing with him, and we talked things out and all these types of things. And so, so I've had conversations with every aspect of that community. People who are very radical, who you see saying the worst things in the streets, all the way to people like Rabbi Fournier, who, learns Rambam, and, that's just how they understand, the world. Like I said, I think he's conservative from what I understand, at least his congregation is. And so, there's differences, with me being an Orthodox Jew, but it's just saying that all the different aspects of that community I've had conversations with.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, I've always just wondered that. So because I always wondered where the disconnect came from, because I read the book, the Black Jews in Harlem. I don't know if you ever read that book or not. Talk about Rabbi Matthews from and all that. So he's pretty much Orthodox, but then it kind of splinters off into the guys on the street corner some kind of way. But I always thought that was quite interesting. Go ahead.
On one point of that, the thing is like this. As a religious Jew, there's things that the Hebrew Israelites say that are not all. I'm talking about the extreme the extreme branches of that ideology, which is You know, they speak against Jews. They, you know, they do kind of like identity replacement thing and these types of ideas. But that doesn't take away, there's still positivity, meaning that their effort is to try to reform their community, right? They do want to improve their community. Now, do they have all the tools to do it? No, they don't have all the tools, right? Number one, in order to fully connect to God's wisdom, you have to be properly circumcised, right? So if you went to the hospital and you received a circumcision there for health reasons, that is not fulfilling the mitzvah of Abraham or the mitzvah on Mount Sinai. And it's not the covenant. So your connection to Hashem is not even, you're not in the covenant, right? Just like a kid who's born Jewish, right? You may be born Jewish, but he has to have a bris milah, right? To enter the covenant, right? So that's one point. They don't want to acknowledge that point. Second point is that the frame of reference of Judaism, and you will see some people, you know, go along with this frame of thing, but it's not Judaism. Judaism is not some ethno race thing, right? Israelites are a specific soul that comes into this world, into a body to fulfill the precepts of the Torah. And that soul is designed in the heavens to have such a desire to want to fulfill the mitzvahs of the Torah, to the point that a person can be born from even a family that's not Israel and still have this desire inside of them and find their way to the Torah and the halakha, right? So when they want to make things about race and ethnicity and skin tone and all this other stuff, it's like, bro, what are you guys talking about? Like, what are you talking about? This is the world of neshama. Your oppressor, the people that you talk about in North America who've oppressed African Americans, they created this ideology of race and class and a separation of skin tone. They created, and now you want to use that mechanism to talk, to understand God and his Torah? It's insane, right? You can't use ethnicity to get to God if the people, a group of uncircumcised men, created the concept. They created the concept of race. They created the concept of ethnicity, right? They created that. The whole concept that there's a white person and a black person, that's the construct of Aesop. That is that concept of us. And even though I wrote a book, My the Black Jew, right? Even merchandise, this whole thing. But the thing is, what I come to the conclusion on, you know, I would say conclusion, my evolving process is to say that if I want to talk about Torah and I want to say, oh, well, I'm a black Jew, or, you know, you're an Ashkenazi Jew, or you're a Sephardic Jew, or you're a Mizrahi Jew. All those terms before Jew are Goyish. Those are Goyish names that people took on in Chutz La'aretz. And now they come to Eretz Israel, and I'm seeing this because I live here. You come to Eretz Israel, and people are separate from each other, and they're divided. Why? Because I see this other person as the other. I see another Jew as, oh, this is a Sephardic Jew, and I'm an Ashkenazi, or this person is Yemenite, and I'm that, or I wear my kippah this way, and you wear your kippah this way, or my grandfather said Hajapin, and you say Hagefen. You know, all these different things. And because so that's a microcosm of America, right? Because you have an entire country that wakes up every day and sees their neighbor as the other, right? They see the neighbors, oh, this person's black, this person's, even within blackness, you got light-skinned, you got this, you got these things. Who created a concept that I, as a human being, which I'm a soul that came into this world for correction. Somebody else comes to me and says, no, that's not why you came into this world. You are black. This is the narrative of your ancestors. This is who you are. Who's telling me that? Who's telling me who I am? The same people who enslaved my ancestors. They now have the ability to tell me who I am. They have ability to. You can't define me. I'm a Jew. You can't define me, right? And so you can't define me. I'm a Jew, bro. You know what I mean? You can't. All your 70 nations theology. I'm not interested. I'm interested what Hashem has to say about who I am. And then they go to other people and say, hey, you're white. And you're white. This is your history. This is who you are. And this is your place in society. And we both believe it. And we're interacting with each other on this false premise of things that don't exist. We are only souls. We have different skin tones because of the equator. That's it. Wherever your ancestry was as it relates to the equator determines your skin tone. But in Western society, oh, you're black and I'm white. But what is it? What are they trying to say? What they're saying is that there's a third party that determines how we perceive reality in ourselves. And we accept that by saying I'm black, by saying I'm white, right? And you could go further. I'm an American. I'm Hispanic. I'm Asian. I'm Russian. Who created these terms? Where does it say in the Torah?
Yeah.
Yes, there's nations, but all the nations are mixed. Anyway, so go ahead. But that's
Right.
my take on that.
No, that's good. Actually, I'm gonna hold off on my next question because you said something, and my wife actually asked me this morning. It was like, well, when you get the rabbi on there, please ask him this question. And she said, well, never mind, don't ask him. But now, since you brought it up, I have to ask you now. So her question is, when does the conversation? So she's struggling with. So she's Haitian. She's a first generation American Haitian. Her parents born and raised in Haiti. For long story short, for political asylum, they ended up in Montreal. Then they ended up in the Boston area. And then when we went through our Gerut process afterwards, she's kind of like, okay, well, now who am I? Am I Haitian? Am I Jewish? Am I black? Like, I guess her question is, when does the conversation of black and Jewish stop and me just being Jewish begin?
Yeah. So that's the issue right there, is that we live in a society that does not acknowledge that we have a soul. Right? They don't acknowledge that we have a soul. It's not in any of the schools, the curriculum of, even though the Torah tells us in the beginning of Bereshit that Hashem blew a ruach into the nostrils of Adam and he became a living creature, right? Nefesh chaya, right? That he became a living. So this living creature is only a byproduct of the soul, right? So when a person comes and they connect to Judaism, someone like myself, right? My parents did not hold by the precepts of Judaism, but nevertheless, my soul still had an affinity for that path, right?
Right.
And so the idea is to say that, well, you know what? When a person comes into Torah and comes to Judaism, it's their soul, whether they're Baal Tshuva, whether they're FFB, whatever it is. When they come in, it's their soul. So what our job is to get connected to our inner self, our soul, because the Torah even says it's not only that we have a soul, within the soul, we have unique lights. They refer to them as parsufim, right? We have unique lights within our soul. That's who we really are. Not just the Jewish people, all of humanity. That's who we really are. We are neshamot that have lights that we're supposed to reveal into this world. Each one of us has a special set of lights that we're supposed to meet in this world. Now, the gift of being a Jew is that we have the spiritual technology to leverage that light to the world. Meaning we have Rosh Hashanah where we're praying for all of humanity. We have Shabbat every week where we're bringing down the light force of God into this, to the world. We have brachot, we have Torah learning, we have halakha. Every mitzvah that we do brings a light for all of humanity. So the soul of the Jew has a specific set of lights that have an affinity with the precepts of the Torah, therefore making us, in a way, responsible for the distribution of God's light in this reality.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the relationship that we're seeing. So I would say that the gift, for me, I would say one of the gifts of being African-American is the fact, because, a lot of times, people like say, sometimes I get in these debates and they will say like, oh, well, your ancestors were slaves and, you don't really know where you come from. You don't know your history, this and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, you know what? That's true. But guess what? Same thing goes for you too. It's just that your colonization process happened longer. You just been colonized for 500, 600. People got conquered and took over. You couldn't even tell me who your ancestry really was. I mean, the history book that they gave you in college, you could tell me that, but you can't tell me, right? So it's your thing. So the gift for me being African-American is the fact that I could let all that go. It's just like, okay, hey, they want to create Negro, African-American, Black, this, whatever term they want to create, and they want me to abide by it. Then they want to create an intellectual class system around this definition, and they want me to abide by that too. I reject it. I reject your way of thinking, not you. I reject the way of thinking of the world. I reject their sentiments. I reject their description of who I am, because none of it is healthy. It's not healthy to call people white or call them black. You take God's creation and you divide it and make it ungodly.
Mm.
You make it ungodly. Once you say you're black and I'm white, or you're Hispanic, now you created a whole nother matrix away from the human being. So I would say that the whole opportunity is to become connected to your soul. And the way that we come connected to our soul is through the Torah, is through the mitzvot. And we need to define ourselves based off of the unique lights. We need to learn about these unique lights, the time, the year we were born, the different experiences, our families, all these things are telling us about the lights that we have to reveal internally. That's why we come from a group of people and there's different struggles. So I would say that's the work. The work is getting in touch with our souls, is getting in touch with the lights within our souls, learning how to share those lights and to share that uniqueness in all the other things of race and ethnicity and all those things. I mean, you could use them to interact with people, who don't know what we're talking about, right? Because you have to have a basis of communication. But in truth, none of these things are true. And the further we get away from these things in definitions, the closer we'll be to God.
Absolutely. So you've already talked about how the concept of the soul, right? And the soul versus race and color and how we see ourselves, how God sees us through the soul. So what is if you're talking to somebody, like you have the concept, what is the remedy? So how do I not see myself as just black and Jewish, or just Ashkenazi, or just Sephardi, Mizrahi, whatever these Goyish terms, as you said, are placed upon us? What's the remedy? How do we see ourselves as God sees us and walk in that in a daily, on a daily basis?
Well, the thing is that this new self-education, right? Because that's ultimately what we have to teach the world now. It's the only way we're going to move forward is to really teach on a mass level about a redefinition of the human being and what the human being is. And so I would say walking in that reality is, one, to separate the experience from just being a human being and being a part of creation, right? Meaning that the unique light that's inside of me also exists inside of the trees, also exists inside of the rocks, also exists inside of the animals and all the other human beings. We all have unique lights at different levels, right? Mankind being at the highest level. Within mankind, the people who keep the Torah are at the highest level of that, right? So it's just saying that idea of being able to know that I'm surrounded by God's light. I'm surrounded by creation that I'm directly connected to and is a part of who I am and a part of my personality and a part of my life. So one, being a part of creation, seeing creation as being a unified idea, right? And this unified idea called creation, I want to interact with this creation in a way that benefits me and benefits creation because we're linked together, right? Like, so if I want to become clean, I don't just put half of my body in the shower. I put all my body in the shower, right? I just don't wash my left hand. I wash my right hand too, right? And so that idea of re-understanding creation, and that's why we have the text. We have the Kabbalah. We have texts that refine our thinking to be able to see life in this way. And so I would say waking up in that's when we wake up in the morning. We say Modiani, right? With the first thing we say in the morning is the acknowledgement that I have a neshama and that there's a king above, right? And then we go into Netilat Yadayim, where we remove the klipas, the negativities that were the body connected to when we were asleep, because our soul went up to the heavens. And there's an aspect of death connected to that. So we remove that from us. And then we go through the morning brachot all the way to, wrapping tefillin, tzitzit, these types of things. But the point is saying the halacha allows us, using it the correct way, to connect to creation and to participate in creation. The laws that we have are there to allow us to participate in creation. So the key basis is to understand that this whole thing is about revealing the lights of our soul and And ultimately, that is the purpose. This is the tikkun. This is the correction in his lifetime, is to take what was concealed and to make it revealed. And from that place, utilizing the halakha and the Torah and the path of the sages to be able to connect ourselves through action with this intellectual understanding. And then thus we kind of like make this kinyan, this binding partnership between our intellect or God's intellect and our ability to have free will with action.
That's good. That's good. I have a friend. Hopefully, I can connect you with him. He's actually in Israel as we speak right now. His name is Jason Kaplan. He's the head of what is called the Bridge Institute, and I'm on the board of his Beit Abilafia board. So we study Beit Abilafia, all of his quirkiness and all that fun stuff. And his whole thing, Jason's whole thing, is everyone has a divine soul, and that's how we should look at people. That's how we should walk in life, and it connects perfectly with what you're talking about. So I have to definitely get you guys connected. He's in Israel a lot. He's in Israel right now as we speak, actually. And maybe I'll shoot him if it's okay. I'll shoot you his number and y'all can connect. And I think he's in Jerusalem actually. But yeah, this is beautiful. Just more people thinking along these lines. But tell us more about because of how you think and the divine soul and the lights. Obviously, these things are, I don't want to say antithetical because that's a strong word, but it's opposite of of how the world tells us we should be, how we should think, how we should, live every day. So kind of tell us about you say you have a philosophical Talmudic worldview. Tell us about that.
Yeah, very nice. So, just on the point, this leads into your question, but I want to just say this point. In the first chapter of the Tanya, right? I learn everybody, all backgrounds, everybody, all the Torah I learn. So the Tanya talks a lot about the neshama, right? That's the base of it, is dealing with this aspect of the Benoni, whatever. It's a whole thing. But the one point the Bala Tanya makes in the first chapter, he speaks about the aspect, he talks about the neshama, and he says, brotherhood cannot be achieved unless the two parties are acknowledging the connection of their soul. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's the essence. And so when you look at all the movements that have happened throughout history, why do they have these highs and lows, right? Because the basis of the movements were based off of externality. Me, my people, our thing, us, this thing. That only can go so far without the human ego getting involved and saying, well, since we all agree on this, within that, we think this way. And we're going to go to this side, right? And other people think this way. So this idea of like having an approach, right? Because a lot of times, you see people that get involved in Judaism, and I'm speaking about a lot of the Gerim that I met, some of which I'm speaking about a lot of African-Americans. It's like a lot of them you see only get in on two levels of their development. Their first level of their development is the acknowledgement of God, the truth of the Torah, to whatever level they're able to understand that, and that there's a way, there's a way to do that. Very nice, right?
Right.
That's entry. Now, the next level past that stage is where people get tripped up at, which is they get stuck on this idea of a community standard, meaning that different communities, most people, obviously if you convert, you're with people who are mostly Haredi most of the time. I mean, maybe some more Orthodox, I don't know, but most of the people I know were in Haredi environments, very religious, frum environments. And so the next stage after that, in essence, is like community. Now, the problem is the community component, a lot of it has to do with ignorance, meaning that they don't know what to do, right? They didn't really learn. They don't really know the halakha. They picked up bits and pieces here that, maybe they're trying to raise kids, this, all these different things. And so what happens is, to build that relationship in the community, there has to be a familiarity. And a lot of times that's expressed in how we dress as Jews. So you see people, they get involved, and next thing you know, they're wearing a strimo, they're wearing a black hat all the time, they're wearing a black and white suit, and this whole thing. And the people in the community are like, yeah, they're really into it, and this whole thing. And so that connection and that acceptance most of the time stops their spiritual progression. And the reason why it stops their spiritual progression is because now most of the people that they come in contact, really, most of them are not learned. Most of these people are working people, and maybe they went to yeshiva at some point, maybe they went to Cheder, they grew up, school, whatever. Sometimes. But most of the people they're going to be in contact with are people in that space. And so when we talk about growing Torah-wise, not everyone's going to grow. Not everyone's going to go to that next level, right? And so what happens is that people get stuck and they say like, oh, well, I'm wearing a black hat and I'm wearing this and I fit in. And so therefore I'm good. They learn a little bit, a little Yiddish, this type of thing. They say a few words, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's could be almost in the frame of Avodah Zarah. It could be almost like a form of idol worship, right? Because instead of growing spiritually and reaching your maximum potential, which means you may have to leave people behind, right? Which means that some of the people that you knew before are not going to be a part of your journey later, right? Because your ideas are going to evolve, the way you see things are going to evolve, their energy is going to change. And so, but that's the mission, right? The mission is seeing how far can you go spiritually? How far can you grow, right? And in terms of an approach to that is it's like people say hashkafa, right? They say like outlook. What's your outlook? What's your hashkafa? Yeah. But hashkafa is not just my outlook, right? It's my outlook determines how I function in the world. And when people don't put Torah first, I think what helped me is that I went to yeshiva a little bit after I converted. You know what I'm saying? Because then yeshiva is all about that. It's all about going very far, about being as refined as possible and these types of things. Like, this is what yeshiva is there for, right? And so for me, that was a very safe environment. And even the communities that I came to in Israel, like I was living in Meir Sharim, for 4.5 years, Meir Sharim, Beis Israel. These are like very, very yeshivish religious places, and everyone there is far gone, right? The outer side of Jerusalem, like, oh, these people are extremists. Like that's how far gone. So I had a safe space. So I'm not trying to put people down, right? I was very lucky to be in certain environments. However, now that I went through that process and I gained knowledge, I could come back and say, hey, you know what? Focus on your spiritual development. Find people who are like-minded, right? Like-minded like you in this particular way, right? And then from there, build things out, right? And so because you just don't want to be one of these guys who just, wears the outfits and they don't even know why they're wearing it. And truthfully, the outfits have nothing to do with them culturally. They didn't, you know what I mean? It's just something people are doing in the community and they start doing it. And many of them, and many of the African-Americans, I would just say, like, who became very religious, they went so far into the community thing that they can't even talk to people from the communities that they come from.
Wow.
They can't even do it, right? And it's just like, okay, wow, okay, great. You guys are doing, everyone wants to be a rapper now, right? Everyone wants to be a rapper. Everyone's doing a rap thing. But why can't you go and give that positive music to the community you came from? Why can't you go and build with them and show them this idea of love and hesed, this thing? What is this about bar mitzvah money? You know what I'm saying? Like, let me, I'm a token black rapper guy and I could get some bar mitzvah money, and I could pay my rent, and that's cool. I'm not criticizing anybody. People got kids. But the point I'm saying is, it's like, when does it come to the point that I'm able to leverage the gifts that God has given me, which is one is my ethnicity, which is my background, which we don't believe in, but it's still a thing in people's minds, right? It's still a way society functions. Right?
Correct.
And so why can I leverage that to bring more shalom? Be a leader. You see all these rappers going to Rabbi Pinto? You see that? Kanye going to Rabbi Pinto? I haven't seen that.
Oh, I've seen that. Kanye, when he was
Young Thug
apologized.
Yeah, he apologized. And a Young Thug went and just build with him. We don't have leadership in our community. We have basketball players. We have actors. We have dancers.
True.
We don't have leadership.
That's true.
And the amount of good that can come out of leadership. The African Americans are the most influential people on planet Earth, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, oh, well, we have style, and no, it's energy. The energies of African American has moved. The idea of America, I'm overseas right now. The idea of democracy is being spread on the basis of the civil rights movement. That's how they articulate the truth of the Constitution. And the ideas of America is through the struggle of the African American and in the immigrant culture that came after that. So my point is saying, so why, as a Jew, would I not be looking to be involved in that space to bring clarity, to bring light, to bring opportunities? In the same way that, there's Mexican Jews that are involved in, like the president of Mexico is a Jewish woman, right? Yeah. Right. So it's just saying that. So this idea of being strong and being connected through the Torah and utilizing that leadership that I have as a Jew to go and help people that may not have that way. But if I'm focused on tokenism, if I'm focused on the outfit, if I'm focused on that spiritual dynamic, I cannot be a source of solution for the world and to improve Am Israel, to help Am Israel, to protect Am Israel. We could remove a lot of anti-Semitism just through having conversations with other people from our background, right? We could actually sit down and talk to them and be like, no, bro, that's not what it is. That's a lie. The same way people lie about black people and we're criminals and we're this and all these other types of stereotypes are developed in media, in movies. Same thing by Jews, same thing by Eretz Israel, same thing by the Medina Israel, right? And so that's why I would say where a lot of people get stuck is in the tokenism and potential financial benefits from tokenism, a lot of them through performance, right? A lot of it through sensationalism. And that's cool, but I would say that's like closer to like a form of idol worship.
Man, that's good. So talk about, and you mentioned it a tad bit there, the influence of hip hop and how it could lead, like how can it lead to more Yiddishkeit? Because we talked on the phone a couple of days ago and you was like, man, if they know Jay-Z, they should know me. So how does the influence of hip hop help us spread Yiddishkeit?
Well, the thing is like this, it depends what's the message behind it, right? Meaning that if I was going to talk to the world, the most important thing I would want to talk about is how we have souls and our souls need energy, needs light, right? And that conversation leads into a whole other set of conversations and lifestyle and these types of things. So I would say with hip hop, for me specifically, right? Hip hop was, in essence, is a combination of a testimony of perseverance. It's also a cry for help. It's also an approach to a society that has put you in a frame of limitation in certain ways. Now, those ideas were expressed in music, expressed in dance, expressed in song, expressed in dress, expressed in eating, and all these types of things. So the hip hop and the civil rights movement, right? Because many of the civil rights leaders, wrote letters to leaders around the world, engaging with them, talking to them about the Black experience and these types of things. So all those things together is a mechanism for me or anyone else from our background to use as a caveat to bring God's wisdom into the conversation. So meaning if Jay-Z allowed them to understand that, this is the condition, this was going on, and this is the perseverance and all these types of things, then they could say, oh, we know you. Like when I'm on TV here in Israel or anywhere in the world, it's not me. It's the history that I represent that's Jewish and Orthodox and a rabbi and a teacher and a Torah scholar. It's that background. It's Montgomery, Selma, Alabama marches. It's Martin Luther King. I heard you playing some sound bites being assassinated. All these different people that came through history. Is that why they're listening? So for my thing is, as a teacher of Torah, as an Orthodox Jew, I see that I'm like, wow, look what Hashem has created. He created a platform where there's all this empathy around who I am. And my story and my tikkun, my struggle, right, in his lifetime, and it's been narrated, and it's this. So that is the opportunity to engage people on something on even a higher level, which is the development and the transformation as it relates to Hashem's Torah. Right. And so when I say like everywhere hip hop is, that's where I need to be at. That's where my brand needs to be at. And I think other people should take that as well and say, I mean, it's not just one person. I mean, there's a lot of rappers, no?
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
So that means there's a lot of stories and perspectives that the world has already been conditioned to study and to understand. So yeah, so everywhere hip hop is, everywhere hip hop culture is, Rabbi Mordecai Yosef, should be there giving a Devar Torah. And I would say Yirmeyahu Yosef should be there too, and his wife and everyone else. You know what I mean? And I think that's the future. And that's why the tokenism in worshiping the community standard versus elevation in Torah, that's why it becomes a problem.
Good. That's good. Yeah. Good connection. So to completely flip the script to the other side, right? So, we've talked about our soul and how we should see ourselves, and the social construct of race and division and ethnicity, and how that hurts us, how that holds us back. Talked about the influences that we've created in our own society, and how those could push Yiddishkeit, how they can pretty much packaged the right way, can reform a community. But now let's flip the script completely to the other side. You're in Israel. You live in Israel. You are an American Israeli. If we want to put that title on you, if we can, and you have a passion. You told me you have a passion for the Temple Mount, the Holy Temple there, and to see it back in the hands of Jewish people. So kind of talk about that a little bit, because I don't think outside of the Jewish communities in the world, I don't think like a regular person walking down, I live in Memphis, so the regular person walking down Memphis, Tennessee, they assume that, oh, well, it's the Western Wall, the Jews own it, it's their stuff, but we don't. Yeah. So talk about that and your passion.
So the thing is like, the Temple Mount, right? The Har Bayit.
Yeah.
We've been talking this whole conversation about the neshama, the soul light, needing light, the whole thing. According to our tradition in Judaism, the light force of the Creator enters this reality on the top of Jerusalem. Like in the same way I have this kippah over my head, the head is, say, Jerusalem, and this kippah is the light force, right? So the light force comes down from the heavens into this world, but it first enters in Jerusalem, specifically through this area that we call the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount goes all the way back, when Noah had the flood, and he sends out the bird, and he brings back the olive branch. That's the Har Bayit. You know what I'm saying? That was the Temple Mount. So that this area has been holy and unique and Kodesh, separate for the ages. It wasn't until David Melech purchased the land and Shlomo Melech, they built a epicenter. They built a massive satellite dish almost, which we call the Beis Hamikdash, the temple itself. And that system, with the work of the Kohanim and the Levim in Israel, that work was used to transmit the light from the heavens and properly distribute it to the four corners of the world. That's what the whole thing is. Now, the Zohar goes even further and says, it talks about this idea of like when a person dies, if they lived a wicked life, they won't be allowed into the different levels of heaven, right? They'll be stuck out, the doors will be closed. But the people who are righteous go to different levels of heaven depending on, where they're holding at. Now, the highest level of Shemaim, they said, is like there's a huge mountain in the heavens. You can imagine something in the heavens as a huge mountain, and all the righteous souls in the heavens all dwell on this mountain. And once a year, there's an inner chamber inside of this mountain where the holy souls go into, and they have a face-to-face encounter with Hashem. Now, why is that significant? That's significant because that was the vision that Shlomo Melech had in terms of building the Beis Hamikdash. They were building something physical that resembled something that existed in the heavens. And even the work on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol goes into the Holy of Holies, that is in lieu of the same experience that's happening in the heavens. So everything that you see we do here in the physical world is only reflective of what's going on in the heavens. And so why is that significant? So Yom Kippur, you could just look at it and say, oh, well, you know what? It's a day of judgment, and we're forgiven of our sins. But when you look at it from the context of the Har Bayit, and you look at the concept of the relation between the Temple Mount below and the Temple Mount above, right? The dynamic above, the Yom Kippur service is binding the upper worlds and the lower worlds together, because we're doing the same exact thing. And the vision for all of planet Earth is to elevate the land and make it in conjunction with the heavens. So, like, for example, why is it so important for Jews to be here? Why is it so important for Jews to take, to expand land ownership? Because there's specific halakot that have to do with how the land is dealt with. Why?
Yeah.
Why are there certain times we plant and times that we don't? Times we harvest, times we don't. What's going on? Because it's reflective of the Israel, the spiritual expression of Israel that is in the heavens. And the same way we conduct ourselves below is only to mirror what's happening above, right? And so the idea is for all the planet Earth to be able to elevate itself to its expressions in the heavens. But that lesson comes through Israel, comes through the land of Israel. Right? And as Jews keep the Torah in the land of Israel, we reflect the Israel above, and we make a connection between those both.
That's good.
And that's the thing. So the Har Bayit that's the education mechanism. One is the fact that heaven and earth are linked. Second is the fact that the human soul in all of creation is receiving light from this distribution. Right? That's when the Kohanim are doing sacrifices throughout the day, 3 times a day. It was bringing down lights, right? Bringing down lights, elevating, animals, elevating certain, incense, herbs, whatever, right? The samim. And so this is the dynamic of that. And the fact that we don't have the Beis Hamikdash is the reason why humanity is suffering, is the reason why we're having wars, is because the light is not being distributed. And not only that, people don't even know it exists. Like you're saying, they don't even know that there is an actual source that feeds your neshama, that the Jews have a responsibility of doing the work for every day. And we're not doing that work. And that's why the world is in the state that it's in right now.
Yeah. So what is your, talk a little bit also just about what's going on right now at the Temple Mount, like who's in charge, and in your opinion, how do we get it back? How do we create that Beis Hamikdash? Is it a Mashiach thing, or is it a right now thing? Like, could it happen tomorrow if we wanted to, or do we have to wait on Mashiach? And is there a path where we see the Arabs relinquishing all that and giving it to us without war? Like, what is your whole opinion on all that?
During in 1967, there was a massive war here, and the Jews were able to conquer. The Israelis were able to conquer, their enemies, and part of that winning of that war was the regaining of Jews back on the Temple Mount. You understand, when the Jews were not in power here before, like 1948, these types of things, Jews were literally put in jail for going to the Temple Mount. Like, even like in a place like Hebron. Hebron is where it's you have Marat Pelach, where Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebecca and Jacob and Leah, they're all buried there. Adam and Eve is buried there.
Yeah.
Jews weren't even allowed to go past the 7th step there. Forget about going in the whole sanctuary area where they're buried. They weren't even allowed to go past the 7th step. So there's always, it's a very similar experience to the discrimination that African Americans had when it was about integrating into white schools. In the same way that, when you see images of Black children being yelled at by racist white people, it's pretty much the same exact thing Jews had to deal with living in Arab-dominated land. And they had taxes that special taxes. Jews had to pay extra taxes. They had crazy laws. Like Jews weren't even allowed to ride horses. You know what I mean? Like anything that shows some type of empowerment. So it's a very similar thing to that. So right now, even though Israel did take control of Jerusalem in 1967, the stewardship of the Temple Mount area was given to the Jordanians, right? So right now there's a trust in Jordan called the Waqf. I think it's called the Waqf. They pretty much manage, they're like the religious police per se, even though the IDF is in control, the military is in control of the physical area, but in terms of the sanctuaries, meaning they have a mosque that they built up there and these different things, they're in charge of that. Now, the push now, since Israel has very good leadership, and the head of security, Itamar Ben Gvir, he is a visionary, and he has, along with many other people, the head of finance, Smotrich, different tremendous people, have really gave this vision and this ability for Jews to go to the Temple Mount in certain areas at certain times with massive security. I'm talking about it's like a military operation every time we do it. And we're able to go up there and pray. No, I'm not kidding. It's really a military operation, like literally. And so because not, we would be probably maybe murdered for going there. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It's like real. This is real, right? And so he's instituted these visionary frames that have allowed us to just, like this year, Yom Kippur, we did Yom Kippur on the Temple Mount, right? I don't know how many thousands of years ago that's happened. And it was like, 200 and some people up there. You know what I'm saying? So these types of things are happening, right? In real time, and they're humongous. And so that's happening. Now, what we want to see at this point is equality on the Temple Mount. We want Jews, Christians, and Jews to have equal access all day, right? And to be able to observe, in the ways that they understand without, that control, right? That is being enforced by the Waqf. So right now, the point is not, to like, let's just say, let's build the basic Mikdash tomorrow, right? There's stages, right? There's stages. The first stage is for Jews to have equality on the Temple Mount, right? Yeah. And as we're on the Temple Mount, the other ideas and other policies will change. Now, another issue why it's important to have a desegregated Temple Mount is because they have things like the Abraham Accord, right? The Abraham Accord was something that was created in the Trump administration in 2016, which was basically a way for the different private sectors, meaning the business districts of the different Arab communities, the surrounding Arab countries that want to do business with Israel in the United States, that they have the ability to do it without having to have their governments involved, which are pretty much like controlled by theocracy, right? Radical theocracy, right? And so that's that. So in order to really create that balanced world that we're talking about, there has to be equality in the Temple Mount. Now also the United States and Israel is going into security alliances with many of the Middle Eastern countries and Gulf states. And so the desegregating the Temple Mount is what we're having. We are creating a world of equality in this region, and I'm pretty sure the idea, like even the war itself, right? Like the war, October 7th, like coming. You can't imagine because I've been here for so long before October 7th, right? This is 2023. Yeah. I was here in 2016, right? Yeah. So much of my life has been here, and to wake up on October 7th in a Simchat Torah, right? Yes. It was Simchat Torah, right? And to wake up and to walk to shul, to hear that people that are dead, right? And you can't like being an American citizen. It's like, we have drive-by shootings. We have like maybe something like Columbine, where some kids go. You have a school shooting. Yeah, you have these things which are horrible, sad things. But this is a whole nother level. This is a whole nother level. Gaza is 2 hours from where I'm at right now. It's 2 hours. When the Iranians were attacking, when the Iranians were saying both times, because we had 2 fights with Iranians, the drones are flying right in front of our window. Like, it's not like I'm in Israel and I'm looking at this, through the TV, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy that's happening. Because in America, something happens in Florida, and you're in LA, you're like, man, that's crazy. That's not right. I'm in war. We're in war. And I personally have almost died a few times, right? Through drone strikes, right? And so, when you have these type of experiences and you see the amount of pain, I just remember October 8th and October 9th, and just seeing the devastation on the people's faces, Muslims, Jews, everybody, no one's trusting no one. You don't know what that's like. Like, just people who are living in the same place, completely divided ideologically. And then because of the way October 7th happened, there was this tremendous outcry of distrust, even for the government, right? How did this happen? This whole thing. So you're dealing with that, and you're experiencing that, and you're coming from America, and you're coming from African-American culture, you're a Jew, and you went through this whole process of Gerut, the whole thing. And you get to the point, you're just like, hey, you know what? We have to bring Mashiach now. We have to focus on this idea that, and so this idea of changing the narrative from race to neshama, from ethnicity to neshama, this is a byproduct of experiencing massive death, casualties, war. You know what it sounds like? A ballistic missile going off. You know what the warhead on a ballistic missile is? I could sit here now. I could hear the difference between an F-35 jet and an F-16. You know what I'm saying? So it's just saying, like, wow, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So these things have changed. This is like a real war zone. And people are like, oh, why would you leave? Why don't you leave? Why don't you stay here? How could I leave Eretz Israel in a time of war? That's crazy. That's crazy. If God forbid something happened to me, God forbid, Lord, if something happened to me and I was nipped or something happened, there's no better place to leave this world standing up for truth than Eretz Israel. There's nothing greater than being in Eretz Israel during the war, being with the Jewish people there. We're in bunkers. We're there. We're doing what we can. We're doing advocacy. I'm not a soldier, but I'm in the spiritual military. Right, we're bringing down tefillah, we're bringing protection. I'm doing outreach, media outlets all over the world talking about the perspective of this. So that, and then also you asked a question about the Hebrew Israelites in Israel. It's close to 10,000. Yeah, right. Wow. The highest amount of African Americans that live outside of America per capita is Israel. Israel. Wow. So there's black people. You see them speak perfect Hebrew, grew up here their whole life. You got, Azriel Moore. You probably see him. He's a very popular guy, Hebrew Israelite. But they're good people. But they're nothing like the people you see in America that are cursing Jews and saying it's a whole different thing. Gotcha. They don't hold by the JC stuff. None of that. Right. They're not into any of that type of stuff in that way. They keep the holidays. Right. They don't keep it in the Talmudic way. You know what I mean? They have Shabbat. Hey, Shabbat, they fast. They fast for Shabbat. And they're all vegan, right? They're all vegan, and they're a beautiful community, and they have contributed so much to this country, right? The Demona community, the African Americans here, brought veganism to Israel. They're the ones who have the vegan plants. I mean, when I say manufacturing plants, where they make the food at this, they have soul food here, the whole thing. Hold on. Excuse me, apologize. Weather's changing,
Fine. I understand.
So anyway, just on that point, there's a lot of African Americans here, and a lot of African Americans that are in the war and have died, defending this country, and they don't show the truth. They don't show the diversity of Israel. They try to make it like, oh, well, this is a white country. It's not a white country, bro. This is like LA. You know what I mean? Like, it's people of melanation here. I mean, you may not call them black because they weren't in chattel slavery, right? But they're melanated people. Whether they're from Iraq, from Persia, from Yemen, from Morocco, whatever, you know what I mean? And even many of the Ashkenaz are dark because they're mixed. Yeah, now people always say, oh, well, they're white passing and these type of things, but they don't want to show the diversity. They want you to see the 400,000 Ethiopians that are here, right? In these things. So it's a big mess, but we have the souls to handle it.
Man, that's powerful. Robert, that's all the questions I had for you. Is there anything that I didn't ask or we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
No, I just think that because the podcast you have is Black and Jewish, I'm assuming a lot of African Americans are going to watch this, or even African American Jews, whatever. But I would just say that let's utilize our cultural experiences and the sensationalism around our ethnicity and us as people, and to utilize that to elevate the conversations around the world to Torah and God, and to not fall into this trap of just wanting to be accepted and wanting. That's going to happen if you're a Torah person. God accepts you, and His creation is going to accept you.
Yeah.
Right. And the people who are not on that path are not going to accept you. And the people who are on the path are going to embrace you. And that's just life in general, right? Good basketball players are friends with good basketball players. You know what I mean? Same thing spiritually, right? So I would just say we all have a responsibility to go back to the communities we have a very big affinity to, and communities all over the world. Like we talked about hip hop, right? Anywhere hip hop is in the world. But we have to transform ourselves from seeing ourselves as entertainment to being teachers, to being soul elevators, right? And to be able to use the charisma and all these gifts and talents that are culturally innate to us to lift up the world and to see our mission as to serving Am Israel, to be a viable, strong member of Am Israel, but to see it in the context of the impact that we can make out in the world, because there's a lot of anti-Semitism. There's a lot of hate against Israel that just because of my background, I have the ability to diminish this through conversation.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, thank you again, Rabbi Mordecai Yosef, for joining Kosher and Black. Tell the audience where they can, I know you wrote a book. You have a social media presence as well. So tell the audience about your book and where they can find you on social media. And then afterwards, shoot me on WhatsApp, shoot me all the links, and I'll put it in the podcast show notes as well.
Perfect. So again, I wanted to thank you, for having me on this show. This is really great work you're doing. This is a great historical conversation that we're having. And people in the future are going to see this conversation, because they're going to be doing research and all the things that are going on now. And so this is happening. And, so I wrote a book, My End of the Black Jew, which is kind of like a weird thing to say after I just went into this whole ethnicity thing. but I would say that, part of the reason why I wrote the book and I gave it that title is because I wanted it to get into universities and schools, which I haven't really pushed yet. Yeah. And they deal with everything on race. And so there was actually a historian, Dr. Henry Abramson, who's a dean at Torah College. Years ago with Nassim Black, we did this whole thing, Black and Jewish, whatever, or the history of Black and Jews, or Jews, or whatever. It was something like this. It's online. You can find it. Yeah. But after that, I realized that, he told me, he says, like, in all of his research, he couldn't find anything in academia that talked about African-American religious Jews. Like, there's nothing. Like, it's like, wow. He says, like, a vanished concept of no Rabbi Matthews, Rabbi Ford, nothing is in academia about these people, right? Which is a whole nother issue to address. Right. But I think there should be a Rabbi Matthews movie, by the way. I think that story of the Israelites, I just think it's a blockbuster, and I just think hundreds of millions of people want to see it just out of curiosity, right? Because there's nothing organized on that. But what I was going to say is that, so I wrote a book, My End of the Black Jew, which is basically, if you didn't go to yeshiva and you want to have the hashkafa, the outlook of yeshiva, and the different attributes of learning that you get in that system, I did that in 103 pages. Every single sentence in the book has meaning and purpose. Nothing is like, superfluous. And this type of thing. So it's a very good book. It was endorsed and supported by pretty much all the major rabbis here in Israel. Some even actually wrote endorsements for it. So there, but now that was, years ago I wrote that book, like at least 3 years ago, right? 2.5, 3 years ago, whatever. But that happened then. And I have wrote a couple books since then, but the main focus now is the book that I'm doing now, which is, I'm not going to say the title, but it's really a connection. It shows the connection between the Temple Mount, the human soul, tefillah, and prophecy. Because the Rambam said that every Jew has the ability to achieve prophecy, right? All of us. And it comes down in last week's Parsha with Jacob getting Nevuah during nighttime through his sleep, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, it's a whole nother conversation on the weekly Torah portion. We can always do stuff like that too if you want. And so whatever. So yeah, so that's the thing. Social media, Rabbi Mordecai Yosef ben Abraham, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everything. My yeshiva is Yeshiva Sanhedrin. And so we have a YouTube channel, which pretty much a lot of the classes that I give online are just live, and they're there. You could catch them. We're learning a lot of Ramchal right now, a lot of Mishalat Yesharim, and Path of Just, these types of things, and also some of his deeper Kabbalistic works. But we got a good crew. We got a good group of guys, and we're learning and we're pushing forward. But yeah, you could just Google me and that, and you have the links on the blog. But again, it was just an honor being here with you, and I really appreciate this conversation.
Yes, thank you. The honor is all mine, Rabbi Mordecai Yosef. Thank you again for joining us here on Kosher and Black. And again, all the audience, if you want to hear more of conversations like this, please share this episode, subscribe to this podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook as well. And yeah, it was beautiful having the rabbi there with us. So that's all I have. Thank you guys for joining. We're out. Peace. Oh, I forgot. Light up the darkness. Change the world. Peace.